I was waiting for my husband, Wood Mason, who I think you all know pretty well, who said he was going to join us, but he must have been delayed at a different session. So I will, I think, be able to walk around here with my leg today. I just wanted to tell you some stories about Wood. Wood and I actually met about 14, wait a second, what year is this? 2016? Yep, about 14 years ago. Yesterday was kind of like our anniversary of when we decided it was a time in our lives where we were both available. And I have to tell you, and then we have now been married for 10 years. He is the best man. He really is. If you have not had someone in your life, which I had not had until Wood and I met and got together, he thinks I'm awesome. And he just thinks I can do anything. And to have someone in your life that is that supportive and that's accepting is so fantastic. He's just a really great guy. So don't tell him I told you that. It's not like he's perfect, okay? But he's a really good guy. Okay, so am I going to be okay, or am I driving you crazy with the wrestling? Because it doesn't bother me. I'm asking the sound guy. Am I good? Okay. All right. So welcome to Title IV Reconciliation for Foreign Schools. I generally do not work with foreign schools, so I'm going to need some fact checks from you if I say or if I don't understand something with your experience. I'm going to get to some areas where I think things are specific to you and how you may process. But I just came from the ginormous room upstairs, which is the big theater, and we couldn't really have a conversation. This is a smaller room, and this is really how I like to present. And so I want this to be a conversation. Feel free to ask questions during the presentation, or to say, I don't know, there he is. Or you can say, I don't understand what you're talking about, you need to explain, okay? So just feel free to, well, you don't have to sit in the back, come on.
No, I'm okay.
Come on up.
No, I'm okay.
Come on, we can banter, we can do our thing that we usually do in the hands-on.
We'll banter here if you say something wrong.
All right. Did you say if or when?
No, I said if ever.
If ever, that's what I thought. There you go, okay. All right, so can you all see that okay? So it looks really washed out, but I guess you're used to it by now, right? Okay, so we're going to talk about reconciliation for you, and we're going to give you some tools and tips. And this is specifically where I want to give you some tips that you may need because you can't do things maybe as domestic schools do on a regular basis. So we're going to look at some different screenshots and some different reports that you may be able to access. We're going to review the rules and regulations, and we're going to talk about reconciliation roundup, where I talk about different processes that you must be completing and ways that you need to do that, and then we'll finish up with our closeout. So let's look at the rules and regulations. To reconcile, this is something that just generally, to make sure you understand, it's to bring into agreement. Specifically for Title IV aid, it means that what you reported to the Department of Education for your loans, only loans, right? Okay, what you reported to the Department of Education for your loans matches exactly what you did on your campus, and that your business office, bursar's office, the money people match exactly what happened in the financial aid office, okay? That's reconciliation. You're in agreement. You said I have 5 feet. Am I right in front of your speakers? Is this better over here? Right there? There you go. Okay. What can I say? And that you've resolved any discrepancies. So while we require you to reconcile monthly, we don't require you to be at a zero balance monthly. Mostly you will be because your record's first. You have to submit disbursements before you get any money. right? So generally, most of you are reconciled. I rarely see any foreign schools on our reconciliation reports because Jessica and Catherine up here, who many of you have as your COD reconciliation coordinators, probably are working with you on a monthly basis if you do have any issues, okay? So you're identifying any reasons for those remaining cash balances and resolving them, and you need to do that monthly. It's required, and we've listed the regulation there for you, that you must reconcile monthly, and one of the reasons that you must do it is because it's required, but also it demonstrates administrative capability. Those of you that have been participating for a couple of years know that we used to have a blue book for business or bursars. That was eliminated, so the only tool that you have now is the handbook, volume 4, chapters 5 and 6, that has all your cash management and disbursement information that you need. So no more blue book, it's all in the handbook. Okay, disbursement definition. A disbursement occurs when you post to the student's account or make the funds available to the student to use for tuition fees, books, and supplies. Okay? It's the date and the time and the amount that you either used the Department of Education funds that you drew down from G5, or you used your own institutional funds. That is also a Title IV disbursement. So if you use your own funds and then draw the money from the department to reimburse yourself, when you post it to the student's account with your funds, that is a disbursement, and that's the date that you need to report to COD. How many of you can use the direct loan origination tool? How many of you have some other software that you're using to send records via EdConnect? Okay. How many of you are able to draw down your ISERs via SAIG or EdConnect? Or you get them in, okay. So not too many of you are using EdConnect to communicate with the Department of Education. And do you know what I mean by EdConnect? Okay. Just a little check here. Alrighty. You also have a 15-day disbursement reporting time frame. So you must tell us that you posted funds within 15 days of doing so. If you're using the DLOT, that's an origination tool. So then you would go to the action queue to go ahead and make your disbursements actual, right? Or you go into the individual student record. You must, and we publish that information every single year. The latest time it was published was in the Federal Register in April of this last year, what the reporting requirements are. And it's after 15 days of making that disbursement or making a disbursement adjustment. So say one of your students decides that they're going to return to the United States, or that they dropped out or did something, and once you know you've done your return of Title IV calculation and you know what the adjustment needs to be, the 15 days starts then. It doesn't start from when the student disappeared off the face of the earth. Okay? Some other issues that are unique to foreign schools, which you all know, you have to have a new master promissory note every single year, and it's tied to your specific academic year. You are all records first, which means you have to submit and have accepted disbursements before funds are made available for you in G5 to draw. Obviously, you're only loans, no grants or campus-based. And the thing that's probably causes you the most trouble are the exchange rates, because you've got to convert everything to US dollars. So when you are drawing funds, you're drawing in US dollars and then converting to your own. When you're returning funds, you need to return the equivalent in US dollars. That's the tough one. Okay, you're getting your money and returning it to and from G5, www.g5.gov. You want to make sure you've got a bank account set up, and here's the part where you know definitely more about this than I do, and how you do that, whether you're using a US bank or whether you're using a foreign bank. But you do need to use a bank account for us to deposit, and also set up either the same bank account or a different bank account to use for refunds. Do most of you use the same account? Different account? You can talk. It's okay. Okay. Have you been talking in your other sessions? Or you have to be quiet all day long? It would make me crazy. Right, Wood? Yes, it would. Okay. Okay, the last thing that I just pulled up down there is, and I know actually it was one of the bigger schools that has a ton of campuses. I can't think of their name right now. It wasn't Cambridge, but in London. Anyway, they just reconfirmed all of their DUNS numbers or changed them all with SAM. I want to remind you on G5, there's a notice. Every year you must register your DUNS, Dun and Bradstreet number, with SAM. So make sure that you're doing that every single year, making sure the data is correct, or we'll have trouble. Okay, G5 award numbers are program and school specific. It's actually composed of the identifier for direct loans, which is P268K, followed by an award year. And for direct loans, it's always the trailing year. So that top one, P268K, is for the 15-16 year, and the one below it is for the 16-17 award year. Those 4 hashtags or pound signs represent your school's unique GAPS or G5 ID. Each one of you schools, each school has a different 4-digit number there. So every year you'll see those same 4 numbers at the very end. Funds are, like I said, award year specific. So you can't draw money from 15-16 to use for 16-17. And if you return money to 16-17, it was supposed to be returned to 15-16, you're going to need to make an adjustment or draw the money down and return it to the correct year. And that's lots of fun, isn't it? Okay, cash management regulations say that you are a trustee. Those funds actually belong to the student. The funds do not belong to the school. You are a trustee of those funds for the student's behalf, and you draw them with 3-day immediate need, okay? So you can't draw down the money more than 3 days in advance of when you're going to use it. As soon as the funds hit your bank account, they have to be posted to the student's account within 3 days. And I'm telling you that, I know you all are records first, but do you know that you can submit your records in advance up to 7 days? You have a disbursement on December 8th. You can send an actual disbursement to COD on December 1st. The funds will then be available in your bank account to draw, say December 3rd, December 4th. Draw the funds, make sure you don't have them more than 3 days, and then post to the student's account on December 8th. If you post to the student's account on December 6th, you have to go back in and change the disbursement date. Okay? If you keep any, you wouldn't necessarily, this doesn't apply to you. You guys probably never have excess or idle cash because you would never have drawn down more than you need unless you dispersed the funds for the student, you drew it down, and then the student withdrew, and you need to return the money. So you wouldn't be hanging on to that money, but you would be returning it, so you should never have any excess or idle cash. So we'll skip this slide. Okay, you need to return funds electronically, which means go ahead and send them back through G5. You've got either your different bank account or your same bank account. If you have an audit or program review, do any of you have those ever? Have anybody come over? Yep. Okay. So if you have a program review and they give you specific directions about how you're to return funds, you want to follow the directions in the audit or program review letter that you get. And again, about those exchange rates, you always want to return the equivalent of what you drew in US dollars. So you're not going to return, it might cost you sometimes, and it might be to your advantage sometimes, depending upon what how the exchange rate goes. But it's got to be the equivalent to the US dollars of what you drew. You might return funds because of the R2T4 calculations, or as I mentioned, the program review, or maybe the student doesn't want the money anymore. Do you ever have students that don't want the money anymore? Yeah, that happens. If the student comes to you within 120 days and they say, you know what, I have this rich aunt, not uncle, aunt, that gave me some money, I don't need these funds anymore. If it's within 120 days, go ahead and adjust the disbursement down and return the funds through G5, and the student is not charged any fees. If the student comes to you at the end of the year and it's been more than 120 days and they want you to return the funds, say, oh, I'm so glad you want to make a payment on your account. You need to send the money to your servicer because we are going to charge them funds or fees. Got it? Are you having a good time? You ready for lunch? Okay. Also, if you have, in some cases, the student may have borrowed enough that they'll have a credit balance. They'll have an excess in tuition and fees, and you give them that credit balance, or you give them, cut them a check, and they never claim it. That's unclaimed funds. You have up to 240 days from the date the check is issued. If the student does not cash within that time frame, and I said up to 240 days, you don't have to take 240 days, but up to that time, if they don't cash it, then you need to return the funds and do a downward adjustment. You want to make sure that by the end of the award year, you've taken care of any stale dated checks or any unclaimed funds if you do it electronically. You don't want to wait a couple of years. It's the end of the award year. Okay. All right, so foreign schools are really going to be on one of two funding statuses. You're either going to be on records first, or basically records first and cash monitoring 1 is effectually going to be the same thing for you, which is you submit the records and then you draw down or you initiate your funding. If you're on HCM 2, then you're still the same thing. You've got to submit records, but you also have to submit documentation as well, which has to be reviewed by a payment analyst, and then that payment analyst requests the money for you. So basically the difference as far as you're concerned is a lot of paperwork on HCM 2 and somebody else asks for the money. HCM 1, you submit the records, increases your CFL, then you draw down the funds. The difference between an authorization or current funding level and your available funds, generally for most of you, you're going to see something like this, which is a little snip from the funding information screen. You're going to see, if you look in the middle, the available balance of $108,002. And then right below that, cash greater than net accepted and posted disbursements, a negative $108,002. That's what you're going to see because you're going to post disbursements, it's going to push up your money, and then you need to draw. So frequently you're going to see that your available balance is just basically the opposite of your cash greater than net because your cash is negative because you haven't drawn it yet. So you're likely to see something like this, or you're going to see an available balance of 0. From time to time, though, if you've refunded money, you may see that you have an available balance because in the direct loan program, and I think I'm a screen ahead of myself. Nope, this will do. But I'm going to show you a picture in a second. In the direct loan program, we don't net out the money. So if you return, say, $5,000 and you do a downward adjustment, that $5,000 is going to stay there and it's going to stay in available balance. That negative $5,000 that you did the adjustment on, it's not going to remove that money. One of my teammates quarterly goes in and for all the foreign schools or the HCM schools, removes any refunds that have built up in the available balance. My point is, you can't just willy-nilly go out and draw whatever is available. It needs to be whatever you dispersed, that amount. If you redraw what you refunded, you're going to be out of balance. Does that make sense? Okay. So here's a picture, and my big thing there just kind of covered up what I didn't want it to cover up. But here's an example from the funding information screen, and there's a report at the bottom of the funding information screen, which we'll look at in a second. This school submitted at the very bottom there on 9/1/2016 The school submitted 1.5 million approximately in disbursements, and that gave them an authorization of 1.5, and they drew it down 5 days later. Then on September 8th, they submitted more disbursements of 167, 136, drew it down on the 12th, and you can see up until when I start covering things up. Then on 10/3, they started refunding money, that negative 7,420. Make it a little bit bigger here. They refunded 10,420, then they refunded another 27,921. Then they submitted disbursements of 78,095, but we didn't increase the CFL that much. We only increased it by the difference because they already had some funds out there. And that's when they did the draw of 78,095. Okay? There are other requirements which I'm sure have been pounded into your head already by other people, but there are documentation that you must maintain to prove that the student was eligible and for what amount they were eligible for. You also have to keep, yes, I posted this disbursement on this date for this amount for the student. You need to keep records that reflect that as well as their eligibility. You also have to keep documentation that proves that you're reconciled and that you did your monthly reconciliation. Okay, we've got two types of reconciliation, internal and external. Internal is what you do on your campus, between your business office and your financial aid office, bursar's office, whoever the money people are, and your financial aid office. External reconciliation is when you make sure that what you agree happened at your school matches what you told us. So internal, your key players are the financial aid office and the business office, as well as the student. Of course, you want to make sure you're giving the student what they requested and returning anything they don't want. You want to make sure that your cash matches, that your disbursements match. In other words, that your net draws are equal to your net disbursements. And by net, I mean cash minus refunds are your net draws. Disbursements minus disbursement adjustments are your net disbursements. And your cash, net cash, should equal always your net disbursements to be reconciled. So you want to make sure that what you posted to students' accounts, both the amount and the date, matches exactly between your financial aid office and your business office. In other words, your net draws equal your net accepted and posted disbursements, that you're not holding on to any cash beyond the regulations, that your internal cash transactions, your draws, your refunds and adjustments match your school's bank account statement, and that if you are transmitting records between your business and your financial aid office using some kind of software, don't assume that it matches. I work with a lot of schools that use a software product where they generate disbursements from the financial aid office and then send that transmission both to COD and the business office, and they assume that it matches, and it frequently doesn't. Now, I know about half of you use the direct loan origination tool, so that wouldn't be the case, but the other half of you that are using some kind of software product, maybe that's how it communicates. You've got to make sure that it matches. You can't assume that it does. Okay, so for the bursar, we have some tips about reconciliation internal. You want to ensure that you guys are going out to lunch on a regular basis, right? Chatting, you're going to communicate. I'm, teasing. You don't have to go out to lunch. You could go out to dinner or for a drink. But anyway, not on school time. Did I say that? Anyway, you want to have regular communication between the business and the financial aid office. Make sure that you're agreeing, as well as that you've checked in with the student to make sure everything matches. Going to compare that bank statement to G5 and return funds appropriately to the correct program and award year. If you make a mistake, you can make an adjustment, but you may not use adjustments to reconcile. So if you returned funds to 15-16 and you meant to return funds to 16-17, you can adjust in G5, but that adjustment should happen pretty soon after you realize you made the mistake. If I see that adjustments are being made by a school in July, it kind of looks like you're doing it to reconcile, and you're not allowed to do that. Okay, report in G5. You've got your external award activity report, which reflects, and here's an example of a foreign school. So you see only the P268K for 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, and 16, 17. We'll go ahead and make one of those a little bit bigger. By clicking on the blue hyperlink, you can actually see all of the changes in the authorization, their drawdowns, and you can see here this school made a refund of $246 on 5/5/2016. I'm not sure if you can see either from your computers or if you can actually see, but you'll also notice that their change in authorization was exactly $246 less up on 6/28 than what they drew. So they drew it down and then they're at a 0 available balance. For the financial aid officer, you again want to make sure you're having those weekly check-ins over lunch, dinner, or drinks, or maybe just going down to the office wherever they are or calling them up and making sure that your records are matching. You want to do that on a regular basis or by using comparison reports to make sure that you're matching. Do most of you have a business office that's located pretty close to you, or? Yep, okay. I had one that was, when I worked in a financial aid office, she was like, I don't know, 5 doors down the hall, and we still had problems with reconciliation, so it can happen. Okay, once you've done your internal reconciliation, that's when you want to begin your external reconciliation and make sure that you're matching what you've reported to COD. You want to make sure that your cash matches and also your disbursements. So again, we've got our key players. We've got the financial aid office and the business office, and you're going to be using both G5 and COD, but you want to reconcile to the amounts that are in COD. G5 is just a resource. You want to make sure that you're keeping your records in sync with COD so that you're fixing any rejects that you have. If you're using the action queue to release actual disbursements, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you go to process a disbursement and it rejects, you get notified of that right away, right? So then you go right away and then fix that. You can also, we'll look at some COD and G5 reports that you can use, as well as some screenshots, and we'll review a couple of announcements that'll be useful to you as well. We have 2 kinds of rejects. One is a I didn't mean to say that. We have 2 kinds of notifications for disbursements. One is a warning and one is a reject. A reject does not build in the COD system. A warning just alerts you that there might be a problem, okay? And it does build, and so it will increase your funding. You want to make sure that you're resolving them timely. I would imagine that for most of you, if you're using the action queue to release your actual disbursements, you're resolving those edit code rejects right on the spot, right? Okay, if you aren't sure what a reject means or how to fix it, you can always chat. Do you guys use the chat feature that's in COD? Time zones are too far off, so mostly email or call? Yeah, chat, do you know that you can chat? Like? Yeah, chat works pretty good. Okay. Edit codes, if you're not sure what they are, you can either contact COD customer service or you can go to the ifap.ed.gov, to the home menu, click on publications, and then the COD technical reference, and you'll want to look at volume 2, section 4, and look at the edits there. It'll tell you exactly what the edit is, as well as how to fix it. And here's an example of a reject. It looks like it's for a PLUS loan, where the school is trying to make a change to the PLUS loan and it's rejecting. So you want to make sure that you're aware of that COD technical reference and use it as you might need it. Okay, how many of you use your direct loan school account statement? That's what I thought. So because the only way you can get your school account statement is through your SAIG mailbox, and by a show of hands, most of you aren't able to use your SAIG mailbox, so you're not using the SAS. The SAS is a required document to reconcile to, so what do? I would guess that you most likely are contacting your COD customer service representatives and asking them to run reports for you. Do you do that? You need to do that. They can run a year-to-date report for you to get your disbursement data right off of the, and they'll post it online for you under COD file share in the school menu. And then you can reconcile to your disbursements and make sure that it matches. Because the school account statement is only available through the SAIG mailbox, as well as the SAS disbursement detail on demand. And those are two key reports that you could be using. So you want to put that to one side and say, I'm going to use my COD customer service representative to run the reports for me and post them on COD so I can just download directly from there. And that will be your disbursement data. And I'm going to show you where you can see your cash data. But one other tool that you can retrieve from COD directly is the actual disbursement list. And the actual disbursement list is in the services menu. You can, when you report your disbursements on a weekly basis, or if you had any disbursements that week, you can go see the direct loan actual disbursement list, pull it down, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and you've got all the accepted records for that week that you dispersed. And keep a record of that, just keep those, and then by the end of the year, you'll have all your disbursements up for there. We also keep the actual disbursement lists posted on the COD website, I believe for 6 months? For 6 months. So they're not there for the whole year, but we do have a history of them there. Okay, I'm going to talk about the SAS so you know what it is, but I understand that most of you are not using it. It is the department's official ending cash balance, so it's like our bank statement, which is why we require that you reconcile to the data that's in the SAS. Which is another reason why you're really going to want to make sure you get those actual disbursement lists. It has 4 parts. It's got a cash summary and a cash detail. I'm going to show you another screen on COD where you can get that cash information. And we're going to skip through this pretty quick. Since none of you raised your hands saying that you use the SAS, I thought there would be some, but perhaps they're not here today. You do use the SAS? Okay, should I go back? Nope, you're good? You're happy with the SAS? Or you're happy with how it works? Okay. Alrighty. Anyway, get the SAS, compare at the summary level data. As long as your cash summary matches, you're done. If it doesn't match, that's when you have to drill down a little bit deeper into either the cash detail or the loan detail to resolve issues. All right. Another report that you actually would probably request from your COD CSRs, because this one is only available also through your SAIG mailbox. It's the disbursement data. It's called the SAS disbursement detail on demand, but it's just the disbursement detail from the school account statement. And instead of being a monthly record, or the year to date as that is, you can make this be whatever date range you want. You can say, I want last week's data, I want the last 2 weeks' data, I want 2 months worth of data, any time frame you want, and it's something you request. It's a demand. It's not something we automatically send to you. If you do get the disbursement detail on demand, you can download a reader, which we have available, which you can import into Excel. And those readers are available under COD resources. And here's a list of all the different resources that we have available. And you'll see 3 from the bottom is that SAS disbursement on demand reader. You download the SAS, you save it, or SAS disbursement detail on demand, and then you pop it into that reader, and it makes it a really usable Excel file for you. Okay, let's get to where you can find that disbursement list. The actual disbursement list, as I said, is from the services menu. It's all the actual disbursements that were accepted for the previous week. We run it every weekend and make it available to you that following Monday. It has anything booked, unbooked, or even future dated from that previous week. So even if you do that advance reporting, you know, send in on December 1st, actual disbursement for December 8th, and say the week ended on the 7th, it's still going to reflect there because you sent that data in during that week. You retrieve it from your news box, and here's a whole list of all the different reports you can get online from the news box there. And you'll see that we've got the actual disbursement lists on the left-hand side there, actually both sides, for multiple award years. And there's the one for 16-17. If you click on the name of the report, you'll pull up the most recent version. If you click on the word actions, you'll pull up a different pop-up menu which will let you get to previous versions of that report. So if you need to go back in time and find out, say you needed September's disbursement report, you would just click on actions to go back and be able to pull that data. And this is what it looks like, mocked up so that I covered up PII data. But you'll see you've got your post date, and that post date is when it was posted on COD. The booked date is when the information went from COD to the servicer. It was transferred to the books of the servicer, so the servicer would start working with the student on their debt. You've got the disbursement date, the disbursement number. If you see a sequence number other than 1, that means you made a change to that disbursement. If you see sequence number 66 through, is it 89? I think so. That, and hopefully you will never see an 89, because that means you made 23 adjustments. Oh my goodness. I don't think I've ever seen an 89. I hope to never see an 89. Anyway, that means you made a change to that disbursement. So you had a first sequence of events, you dispersed it. And then maybe you had to change the amount. You'd probably, if you did it online, see a 66. If you sent it through your software, you might see a sequence number 2. Or if it was the next adjustment, a sequence 3. And then you've got your gross amount, your fee amount, and then skip a column and you've got your net amount. You see that one that's 3 from the bottom where there was an adjustment, a negative 10,141? So there was initially reported a gross amount. You can also see they made a change, sequence number 66, and that change was they adjusted down basically the entire amount of that disbursement. So it's got your amount of the adjustment right there. On the top one, the adjustment amount was only $5,744, and it looks like it was an increase. So the student wanted to get more money. So there was an increase to that disbursement. The school summary information is a screen which you can view on COD anytime by logging in and going to your school information. And it's a great place for you to check and see if you have any funds that should be drawn. Again, if you've got negative, that means you have more disbursements reported than you have drawn cash. The school funding information screen is a key screen for you because it will be a way for you to pull your financial information. This is also from the school menu. It's about the 4th or 5th one down on the left-hand side that you'll choose. And it will pull up your cash information. But a little bit further down on that screen is a hyperlink to the school funding history report, which looks like this, which I showed you earlier. Since many of you are not getting your SAS, you're gonna need to get your cash information somehow. So you're gonna wanna pull this school funding information data from COD so that you can make sure your cash is balanced and is reconciled. You can also check the school summary financial screen. This actually mirrors the school account statement. So this is something that you could use, and a lot of domestic schools use this screen. It's updated as you process. So the SAS is a snapshot of a month. This is updated daily. So it has your total draws minus any refunds, your net draws, and it will also reflect your net disbursements. So you can use this screen to monitor your reconciliation to make sure you're in balance. And I would print it out from time to time as documentation for your auditor that you are reconciling, and that if there is a discrepancy down there, and what that is. And this is just a bigger screenshot of that. Every year it begins a beginning cash balance of 0, and then in this case they have a cash greater than net accepted and posted disbursements of a negative 260,160. So print that out, tell your auditor, yep, I just didn't make the draw yet, I need to draw the funds. There you go. We also want to be monitoring IFAP. Again, that's ifap.ed.gov, and you'll go to announcements. There's a section for COD announcements. You want to really pay close attention to those. I'm not sure how many of you are impacted directly by our change in fees, but we do change our fees due to sequestration every year. We post about those fees every single year in June, usually. And so if you have any disbursements that you sent in with a fee and they weren't dispersed prior to October 1st, you're going to want to change the fees before you send in the actual disbursement with a date after October 1st. Okay, so just to kind of summarize everything, final reconciliation and closeout. Closeout is what you do at the end of the year, so you're reconciling monthly, but you must officially close out the year every year. And for direct loans, it's always the last week in July, the last Friday in July. So for 20, right, Wood? You're shaking your head at me. Are you awake, Wood? Oh, you're agreeing. Okay. You all? No, you do not. Okay. The action queue is a great tool for you to use to run an ad hoc pending disbursement list and also to make sure that you've reconciled. You can use it for reconciliation by, let's say here I wanted to make sure I've reconciled for 15-16. So I pick a date that started well before I started processing for 15-16. So let's say you started in June. So you go back to May 2015. And then you have your end date as when you know you were done processing. Keep all your disbursements at pending. Then you can go ahead and export that. Is this what I have a slide for that? Nope, not here. You can export that information to CSV or to an Excel spreadsheet. Filter out all the zeros, and then you have any disbursements that you have not yet reported for students that maybe you either need to zero out or you do need to report. That's a great tool for you for reconciliation. But it's also, you can go forward in time. So let's say your president says, I want to know how many disbursements we're going to have in January for the 16-17 award year. You can go change your award year to 16-17. You can change your disbursement start date to January 1st, 2017. Change your end date to January 31st, 2017. Keep your disbursement status at pending, and then you have an ad hoc pending disbursement list, and you can tell your president, yeah, we're expecting $175,452 in January if all the students are here and in school and making SAP, right? I mentioned direct loan closeout last weekday in July. So this next year for 15-16, it will be July 31st, 2017, but you don't have to wait until then to close out. If you're done processing for 15-16, you can go ahead and confirm closeout as long as on that school summary screen, you see that you have a 0 ending cash balance, or you look at your SAS and see that the last SAS you received, you have a 0 ending cash balance, then you can officially close out the year. If you need to reopen it then, all you have to do is go and reopen the award year to make any adjustments that you might need to make. And you do that by going to post deadline extended processing on the COD website. You choose your year and you give the reason why you need to reopen it, and then you'll be able to submit any changes to records for a closed year. Any regulations that we have always supersede the closeout process. So in other words, that regulation that we have that you have to report disbursements and disbursement adjustments within 15 days, even though you have to reconcile monthly, if you know there was an adjustment, you can't just make the adjustment monthly. You've got to make it within the 15 days. Okay. A recap then. Just to make sure we tie everything up, you want to make sure that you're in agreement on campus and with the department. You want to make sure you're meeting your regulatory requirements, 15 days, as well as returning funds timely and not keeping them in your bank account longer than 3 days. And use your customer service CSRs or use your school account statement, but make sure that you're getting disbursement reports and you're using the cash screens and printing those reports out so that you have the tools you need to prove to your auditors that you're reconciling, okay? You have to have that data. We also have some other resources available to you. I've just listed them all for you, so if you print this presentation out, you will have what you need. Got the foreign schools number there. Also on IFAP, there is a foreign school information page specifically for you. Hope you all know that by now and visit it frequently. Additional sessions, which you probably all sat through mostly by now. There might be a couple of foreign school sessions left. And then I just printed out a bunch of different reports so that you'd have which ones are available on the web as well as which ones go both ways, on the web or through your SAIG mailbox. And I think we've got it. Any questions? You guys? Yes.
Hold on, let me just bring a mic so we get the recording, Barbara.
How is the actual disbursement list different from the school loan list in NSLDS?
The actual disbursement list is generated from COD, and if you're getting a different report from NSLDS, the other report is generated from NSLDS. You're going to want to reconcile to COD. And if there's a discrepancy between the two, we need to know because that data might not have made it between COD and NSLDS.
And they should be the same, correct?
They should be the same. If the student made a payment, that might be reflected on the list from NSLDS, but you could also find that payment information on COD under the, if you go to the person menu, on the left-hand side, additional borrower eligibility, any payments that a student made on the loan during that loan period are also reflected there. And I thought Evelyn had a student that had a $20,000 loan, and I thought of why that they might have made that $120 payment. So she was having a hard time showing her auditor that, you know, she had the loan for $20,500, but there was this $120 that was different in NSLDS because the student had paid down part of their loan. So I showed her how she could go to COD and look under the person menu and go to additional eligibility to reflect the payment, but neither one of us could figure out why the student would make a $120 payment on a $20,000 loan while they were in school. And of course, all of my great ideas and thoughts come to me in the shower, and I thought, they probably thought they were paying the interest. And instead of paying the interest, they made a payment on their loan. So that was my shower thought of the day. Any other questions? Yes.
Oh, hello, Barbara. My
Hi.
name is Tanya Glazer. I wanted to clarify about the process for when student doesn't cash a refund check that they got from Title for funds for their living expenses. You mentioned that the funds need to be returned back via G5, and then is there any adjustment need to be made in court or I'm just not sure about the time frame. What if it was over 120 days when we gave this check to the student? Do we still follow the same process, or is the process different?
Yes. So since she has a mic, you guys are all hearing this, so I don't need to repeat the question unless you want me to. Speak up now or forever hold your peace. Okay. So I think we're getting a couple things confused here. So if a student returns funds within 120 days, then you're going to make the downward adjustment and you're going to return the funds to G5. If they have not cashed a credit balance check, and I'm totally losing my thought. Anyway, you're going to still return the funds if it's at any time. It doesn't have to be within that 120 days. You're still going to return the funds through G5 to your direct loan account, and you're going to do the downward adjustment. Okay?
In court.
I'm sorry? In COD.
Download adjustment
that's
in
correct.
COD.
Right. You're going to make the adjustment in COD, and you're going to return the funds to G5. Okay?
And it doesn't matter if it was over 120.
It doesn't matter if it's over 120 days.
Okay, thank
Okay, you're welcome. That's a good question.
Um,
Yes.
Can I go?
Yes.
Over here.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? Two questions actually. One is in terms of the record retention.
Yes.
I think it's 3 years we have to keep the records, but you might confirm that. I'm just wondering how long. We tend to have paper files as well as electronic because it makes things easier for the auditor. So particularly with paper files, we don't want them hanging around for too long. And then just the second question, possibly I should know this, but I don't, regarding the HCML 1 and 2. How do we know which we are and what are the difference between the two? Possibly this was covered, but
No, that might-
I don't work on the bursar side of things, so maybe that's that end of it.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm going to say perhaps I should know that as far as record retention, and I think you probably want to double check with Marcia, but I think it's is it 2 or 3 years after the end of when the student attended. So if you have a 4-year program, you're actually holding records for, is it 2 or 3 years after? You think it's 3? Right, but you still need to keep the records for basically the entire time. So if you have a 4-year program, you're going to be keeping all of the records related to that student and their time at your school for 3 years after the end of when they left. So you might have them for 7 total years if you had a 4-year program.
So
Okay.
Students that borrow in the same year, they're going to all have different times. You know, you can't take the sort of 16-17 file and
Right, let's say you
hold
have
them
a
for the same length
student
of
that
time,
started
yeah.
at your school in 15-16 and you have a 4-year program. You're going to keep all of the data from 15-16 until 15, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 3 years, till 2022.
until they
Yowzer.
finish at your school. Yeah.
3 years after when they finished at your school. All the data. HCM1, HCM2. You will know because the department will send you notification letter email that you've been placed on a cash monitoring status.
Okay, I
Okay.
remember it from earlier. Yeah.
Right.
So it's a special situation. It's
Right.
not a normal thing. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
And HCM1, there's no, I think there's just an annual paper things extra that you may need to supply. But HCM2, every single disbursement has to come with a disbursement packet reflecting all this disbursement data, which a payment analyst reviews, and then they decide if what you have submitted substantiates that that student is eligible and can be paid, and then they request the funds. So it's a pretty intensive review process.
Yeah. Thanks. I think it was covered at the beginning, but I wasn't sure if it was referring to the same thing.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks. All right. Happy day? Everybody's good? No questions except for Wood? Yes.
Hi, you mentioned that we have to make adjustments in COD when we return the funding. Do we have to wait until the funding shows up in COD, then we make the adjustment, or we can make the adjustment right away?
You don't have to wait for the funds to show up, and this is actually a really good point, because when you return funds to G5, it can take up to a week for that data to flow over to COD. So if you return the funds in G5 and the same day you make an adjustment in COD, you could look unsubstantiated for a week, and it could just be because that refund has not yet hit. G5 holds the refunds until they know the money clears your bank account before they share the data with other systems. That's why it takes so long. And they do that because several years ago, which is probably more information than you want to know, but I'll tell you anyway, we had a school that returned, I don't know, $2-3 million, and then so the funds were immediately available for them, but then it didn't clear the bank account, and we had a big problem. So we made a change in our system to make sure that the funds actually clear before they become available again, and that's why it takes so long now. So you can thank that one school that caused this problem. Always one school. Just like my son, when he was, I don't know, 2nd grade, he was running on the playground, and they had taken down the fence in between the bars and the where they ate lunch and the playground, and he just ran after he finished lunch, and he ran into one of those low bars that you can swing around on. Hit his head, shredded his eyelid, and had all kinds of stitches. Because of that one incident, they made a whole rule for the whole school that no kids could run in the lunch area. I felt so bad for all the kids, for my son doing something stupid. My smart son doing something stupid. Anyway, we're done if you don't have any more questions. Yes, one more, I'm sorry.
I was just wondering about the SAIC mailbox, because it was quite a relief to see that most people seem to have problems with it and are not using it. But my question would be, as a foreign school, should we actually be using this mailbox? And are there any instructions available how to do this? And who could help us with that?
Yes, downstairs in the COD resource lab, there's a desk on, so when you walk in and you see the long line for Ask-a-Fed on the right-hand side, the COD table is all the way at the end. Well, in the middle, opposite that, is the CPS SAIG table, and they're the ones that can help you get set up with EdConnect. You really should be using EdConnect if you can, but a lot of foreign schools are not able to because it just doesn't work. But you really should be, because you really are supposed to be using your school account statement. You really are supposed to be pulling down your ISERs, but you have to get through EdConnect. So you really should if you can. Good question. Any more? Going once, going twice? Yes. The question is, why does it take so long for money, and I won't pick a particular country, but when you're returning money in your country, I'm assuming you're using a bank account that's in your country, and the money is going by Western Union, how come it takes so long? I would actually, if you have an issue like that where it's taking a long time, call COD customer service and we can research it, because it should not be taking that long. So I would think there would be an issue with either the wire transfer or the bank. Now are we happy day? Happy day? All done. Okay, thanks guys, you were a great audience.